Hey, what's going on, guys? So what we're doing right now, we are actually getting ready to record an audio version of the Muller Report. Okay, so you can kind of see on the screen right here what we're talking about is the Muller Report, U.S. Department of Justice report on the investigation into Russia interference in the 2016 presidential election. This is volume 1 of 2. So special counsel Robert X. Muller submitted this report pursuant to 28 CFR subsection 600.8 Charlie, Washington, D.C., March 2019. So what we're going to talk about in this report as we go through the audiobook is we're going to basically talk about the table of contents. So the volume 1 table of contents includes the introduction to volume 1, executive summary to volume 1, the special counsel's investigation, Russian active measures social media campaign, structure of the Internet Research Agency, funding and oversight from Concord and Progozhin, the IRA target of U.S. elections. The IRA ramps up U.S. operations as early as 2014. U.S. operations through IRA control social media accounts, U.S. operations through Facebook, U.S. operations through Twitter, individualized accounts, IRA botnet activities, U.S. operations involving political rallies, targeting and recruitment of U.S. persons, interactions and contact with the Trump campaign. Within that is Section A, the Trump campaign promotions of IRA political materials. B, contact with Trump campaign officials in connection to rallies. And then subsection 3 is Russian hacking and dumping operations. Within that, you have A, GRU hacking directed at the Clinton campaign. Subsection 1, GRU units target the Clinton campaign. Number 2, intrusions into the DCCC and the DNC networks. Within 2A is initial access. B, implementation of malware on DCCC and DNC networks. C, theft of documents from DNC and DCC networks. And then B is dissemination of hacked materials. Within that, you have 1, DC leaks, 2, Guccifer 2.0, 3, use of WikiLeaks. Within WikiLeaks, you have A, WikiLeaks expressed opposition towards the Clinton campaign. B, WikiLeaks first contact with Guccifer 2.0 and DC leaks. C, the GRU's transfer of stolen materials to WikiLeaks. D, WikiLeaks statement dissembling about the source of the stolen material. And then Charlie is the additional GRU cyber operations. Within that 1, you have summer and fall of 2016 operations targeting Democrat-linked victims. 2, intrusion targeting the administration of U.S. elections. D, Trump campaign and the dissemination of hacked materials. Okay, within that you have HOM, and in the background, the contacts with the campaigns about WikiLeaks, harm to ongoing matter, that these are redacted. That's the reasons they're redacting. C. And I got WikiLeaks, October 7, 2016, release of stolen Podesta emails, Donald Trump Jr.'s interaction with WikiLeaks. There's another redaction in there. Then you get the other potential interest in the Russian hacked materials, Henry Okasinski, aka Henry Greenberg, campaign efforts to obtain deleted Clinton emails. Then you got 4, Russian government linked to and the contact with the Trump campaign. Campaign period September 2015 to November 8, 2016. Trump Tower Moscow projects. Trump Tower Moscow venture with the Crocus Group, 2013 to 2014. Communications with IC Expert Investment Company and the Kyrgyz Rekeshkidev Summer Fall 2015. Letter of intent and contacts to Russian government, October 2015 to January 2016. Trump signs a letter of intent on behalf of the Trump organizations to post LOI contacts with individuals in Russia. Discussions about Russia travel by Michael Cohen and candidate Trump, December 2015 to 2016. Sanders overtures to Cohen to travel to Russia. Candidate Trump's opposition to Russian travel. George Papadopoulos, origins of campaign work, initial Russian-related contacts, March 31st foreign policy team meetings. George Papadopoulos learns that Russia has, quote, dirt in the form of Clinton emails, Russia-related communications with the campaign, Trump campaign knowledge of dirt. Additional George Papadopoulos contact, Carter Page, background, origins of early campaign work, Carter Page's July 2016 trip to Moscow, later campaign work and removal from the campaign, later campaign work, I already talked that, Dmitry Simas and the Center for National Interests, CNI and Dmitry Simas connect with the Trump campaign, national interest host of foreign policy speech at the Mayflower Hotel, Jeff Sessions post-speech interaction with CNI. Jared Kushner's continuing contact with Simas. June 9, 2016 meeting at Trump Tower, setting up the June 19 meeting. Outreach to Trump Jr. Awareness of the meeting within the campaign. The events of June 9, 2016, arrangement for the meeting, conduct of the meeting, post June 9 events, events at the Republican National Convention, Ambassador Kislyak encounters with Senator Sessions, J.D. Gordon, the week of the RNC, change to Republican Party platform, post-convention contest with Kislyak. Ambassador Kislyak invites J.D. Gordon to breakfast at the ambassador's residence. Senator Sessions, September 2016 meeting with Ambassador Kislyak. Paul Manafort. Paul Manafort's ties to Russia and Ukraine. Oleg Deripaska consulting work, political consulting work. Konstantin Kilimnik, contacts with Paul Manafort's time with the Trump campaign. Paul Manafort joins the campaign. Paul Manafort's campaign period contacts. Paul Manafort's two campaign period meeting with Konstantin Kilimnik in the United States. Post-resignation activities. Post-election and transition period contacts. Immediate post-election activity. Outreach from Russian government. High-level encouragement of contacts through alternative channels. Kirill Dmitriev's transition era outreach to incoming administration background. Kirill Dmitriev's post-election contact with the incoming administration. Eric Prince and Kirill Dmitriev meet in Seychelles. George Nader and Eric Prince arrange Seychelles meeting with Dmitriev. The Seychelles meeting. Eric Prince's meeting with Steve Bannon after the Seychelles trip. Kirill Dmitriev's post-election contact with Rick Gerson regarding Russia, U.S.-Russia relations. Ambassador Kislyak meeting with Jared Kushner and Michael Flynn in Trump Towers following the election. Jared Kushner's meeting with Sergei Gorgov. Peter Evans' outreach effort to the transition team. Carter Page contact with Deputy Prime Minister Arkady Dovkorsh. Contacts with and through Michael T. Flynn. United Nations vote on Israeli settlements. United sanctions against Russia. 5. Prosecution and declination decisions. Russia active measure social media campaign. B. Russian hacking and dumping operations. Okay, this is on page 175. Within that one is section 1030, computer intrusion conspiracy. Then you have A, Brad Grant, and then B is pretty much redacted as harm, will cause harm to ongoing matters. But 2 is potential 1030 violation by a private person that's redacted. Russian government outreach and contacts, page 180. Within that, Charlie, you have A, potential coordination, conspiracy and collusion. 2, potential coordination, foreign agent statutes, FARA and 18 U.S.C. section 951. Governing laws can be found on page 181. Application Page 182, campaign finance, overview of the governing laws, application to June 9 Trump meeting tower, thing of value element, willfulness, difficulty in valuing promised information, application to WikiLeaks, that's redacted, questions over, that's also redacted, willfulness, constitutional consideration, page 190, analysis is redacted, false statement, and obstruction of investigations. That's number 4. Over there we have A, overview of governing laws, B, application of certain individuals, and on the B1 you have George Papadopoulos, that's on 192. 2 is redacted for personal privacy, 3 is Michael Flynn, 4 is Michael Cohen, 5 is redacted, 6 is Jeff Sessions, 7 is other interviewed during the investigation. Okay, so this is page 5 of the, again, we're just talking about the table of contents, okay? Table of contents. It's very interesting. This is going to be a side comment. It's very interesting how this is all laid out and how it was then applied to whether each one of those individuals actually were basically they breached these statutes right here, potential coordination foreign agent statutes, FARA, and 18 USC section 951. So it's interesting how they laid the governing laws, the application, and also whether there was any potential campaign finance laws violations with this whole thing, okay, this matter. So like again, that's all we talked about the page right now. We're actually only in page 8 of this 448 page information. So now let's get to the meat and potatoes. We just talked about the actual introduction. Let's get to the meat and potatoes. Okay, so here we go. Introduction to Volume 1. This report is submitted to the Attorney General pursuant to 28 CFR section 600.8c, which states that, quote, at the conclusion of the special counsel's work, he shall provide the Attorney General a confidential report explaining the prosecution or declination decisions the special counsel reached, close quote. Paragraph. This Russian government interfered in the 2016 presidential election in sweeping and systematic fashion. Evidence of Russian government's operations began to surface in mid-2016. In June, the Democratic National Committee and its cyber response team publicly announced that Russian hackers had compromised its computer networks. Releases of hacked material, hacks that public reporting soon attributed it to the Russian government, began that same month. Additional releases followed in July through the organization WikiLeaks, with further releases in October and November. In late July 2016, soon after WikiLeaks' first release of stolen documents, a foreign government contacted the FBI about May 2016 encounter with Trump campaign foreign policy advisor George Papadopoulos. Papadopoulos had suggested to a representative of that foreign government that the Trump campaign had received indications from Russia government that it could assist the campaign through the anonymous release of information damaging Democratic presidential candidate Hillary Clinton. That information prompted the FBI on July 31st, 2016 to open an investigation into whether individuals with the Trump campaign were coordinating with the Russian government in its interference activities. That fall, 2 federal agencies jointly announced that the Russian government, quote, directed recent compromises of emails from U.S. persons and institutions, including U.S. political organizations, close quote, and, quote, these thefts and disclosures are intended to interfere with the U.S. election process, close quote. After the election in late December 2016, the United States imposed sanctions on Russia for having interfered in the election. By early 2017, several congressional committees were examining Russia's interference in the election. Within the executive branch, these investigatory efforts ultimately led to the May 2017 appointment of Special Counsel Robert X. Muller III. The order appointing the special counsel authorized him to investigate, quote, the Russian government's effort to interfere in the 2016 presidential elections, close quote, including any link or coordination between the Russian government and individuals associated with the Trump campaign. As set forth in detail in this report, the special counsel's investigation established that Russia interfered in 2016 presidential election principally through two operations. First, a Russian entity carried out a social media campaign that favored presidential candidate Donald J. Trump and disparaged presidential candidate Hillary Clinton. Second, a Russian intelligence service conducted computer intrusion operations against entities, employees, and volunteers on the Clinton campaign and then released stolen documents. The investigation also identified links between Russian government and the Trump campaign. So what we're going to do, we're going to start highlighting something. We wanted to redact, but we can't redact anything. So we're going to do some highlighting as we read, okay? All right. Although the investigation established that the Russian government perceived it would benefit from a Trump administration or Trump presidency and worked to secure that outcome, the campaign, I'm going to start this all over again. Although the investigation established that the Russian government perceived it would benefit from a Trump presidency and worked to secure that outcome, and that the campaign expected it would benefit electorally from information stolen and released through the Russian efforts, the investigation did not establish that members of the Trump campaign conspired or coordinated with the Russian government in its election interference activities. So let me ask a question in the sidebar. So does that mean there's no collusion, no interference? Does it basically clear Trump and the campaign folks? Well, let's continue reading. Below, we describe the evidentiary considerations underpinning statements about results of our investigation and the special counsel's decision, and we then provide an overview of the 2 volumes of our report. The report describes actions and events that the special counsel's office found to be supported by evidence collected in our investigation. In some instances, the report points out the absence of evidence or conflicts in the evidence about a particular fact or event. In other instances, when substantial, credible evidence enabled the office to reach a conclusion with confidence, the report states that the investigation established that certain actions or events occurred. A statement that investigation did not establish particular facts does not mean there was no evidence. This is very important. A statement that the investigation did not establish particular facts does not mean that there was no evidence of those facts. It's interesting. In evaluating whether evidence about collective action of multiple individuals constituted a crime, we applied the framework of conspiracy law, not the concept of collusion. So when we're dealing with multiple individuals, framework conspiracy law was applied, not the concept of collusion. In so doing, the office recognized that the word collude was used in communication with the acting attorney general confirming certain aspects of the investigation scope, and that the term has frequently been invoked in public reporting about the investigation. But collusion is not a specific offense or theory of liability found in the United States Code. Let's go ahead and highlight this real quick. But collusion is not a specific offense or theory of liability found in the United States Code, nor is it a term of art in federal criminal law. This is very important, folks. Nor is it a term of art in federal criminal prosecution. So I'm gonna pause real quick for a quick commentary. So what does that really mean if the term collusion is not an offense or theory of liability, nor is it a term of art in federal criminal conspiracy? Does it mean if you didn't look at it from the word collusion and it's not a crime, does that then mean that it doesn't matter if collusion did happen? Well, I don't know. What do you guys think? Just go ahead and leave a comment on this. There'll be a section that you can comment on this audiobook. Tell me what you think. Also, if you're on the YouTube channel, go ahead and leave a comment right there. All right, and let us know what you think about this particular important spot on this stuff. And that's why we're coming up with this audiobook, so we can kind of analyze exactly what the thought process was in going into this report. Okay, well, let's continue. For those reasons, the office focus on analyzing questions of joint criminal liability was on conspiracy as defined in federal law. In connection with that analysis, we addressed the factual questions whether members of the Trump campaign coordinated in terms that appears in the appointment order with Russian election interference activities. Like collusion, coordination does not have a settled definition in criminal law. Here we go again. Like collusion, coordination does not have a settled definition in federal criminal law. We understood coordination to require an agreement, tacit or express, between the Trump campaign and the Russian government on election interference. That requires more than the two parties taking action that were informed or responsive to others' action or interests. We apply the term coordination in that sense when stating in the report that the investigation did not establish that the Trump campaign coordinated with the Russian government in its election interference. So that right there explains, again, this is page 10 on, of the 144-page documents, okay? The report on the investigation consists of 2 volumes. Again, like I mentioned previously, this is volume 1 we're talking about. So here's what volume 1 talks about. Volume 1 describes the factual results of the special counsel's investigation of Russia's interference in the 2016 presidential elections and its interaction with the Trump campaign. Okay. Second, it describes the scope of the investigation. Sections 2 and 3 describe the principal ways Russia interfered in the 2016 presidential election. Section 4 describes the links between the Russian government and individuals associated with the Trump campaign. Section 5 sets forth the special counsel's charging decisions. Volume 2 describes the president's actions towards the FBI's investigation into Russia's interference in the 2016 presidential election and related matters, and his actions towards the special counsel's investigation. Volume 2 separately states its framework and considerations that guided the investigation. Okay, this is page 3 of the actual document with the actual part, but it's page 11 of 1. Now we're going to page 12. Okay, executive summary to volume 1. Again, I'm going to tell you some of this stuff is redacted, so we're just going to keep reading. If it gets to something that's redacted, we're going to tell you redacted. Okay, Russia social media campaign. The Internet Research Agency, IRA, carried out the earliest Russian interference operations identified by the investigation. social media campaign designed to provoke and amplify political and social discord in the United States. The IRA was based in St. Petersburg, Russia, and received funding from Russia oligarch Yevgeny Prigozhin and companies he controlled. Prigozhin is widely reported to have ties to Russian President Vladimir Putin. The other parts are redacted. In mid-2014, the IRA sent employees to the United States on an intelligence gathering mission with instructions, ongoing matter redacted. The IRA later used social media accounts and interest groups to sow discord in the United States political system through what it termed information warfare. The campaign involved a generalized program designed in 2014 and 2015 to undermine the U.S. electoral system through targeted operations that by early 2016 favored candidate Trump and disparaged candidate Clinton. The IRA's operation also included the purchase of political advertisements on social media in the name of U.S. persons and entities, as well as the staging of political rallies inside the United States. To organize those rallies, IRA employees posed as U.S. grassroots entities and persons and made contact with Trump supporters and Trump campaign officials in the United States. The investigation did not identify evidence that any U.S. persons conspired or coordinated with the IRA. Section 2 of this report details the office's investigation of Russia's social media campaign. Headline: Social Russian hacking operations. At the time that the IRA operation began to focus on supporting candidate Trump in early 2016, the Russian government employed a second form of interference: cyber intrusions, also known as hacking, and releases of hacked materials damaging the Clinton campaign. The Russian intelligence service, known as the Main Intelligence Directorate of the General Staff of the Russian Army, also known as GRU, carried out these operations. I'm going to repeat that again. I'm going to highlight it. All right? We don't know what that means, but the Russian intelligence service, known as the Main Intelligence Directorate of the General Staff of the Russian Army, GRU, carried out these operations. In March 2016, the GRU began hacking the email accounts of Clinton campaign volunteers and employees, including campaign chairman John Podesta. In April 2016, the GRU hacked into the computer networks of the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, DCCC, and the Democratic National Committee, DNC. The GRU stole hundreds of thousands of documents from the compromised email accounts and networks. Around the time that the DNC announced in mid-June of 2016 the Russian government's role in hacking its networks, the GRU began disseminating stolen materials through the fictitious online personas, quote, DC Leaks and Guccifer 2.0. The GRU later released additional materials through organization WikiLeaks. The presidential campaign of Donald J. Trump, quote, Trump campaign or campaign, showed interest in WikiLeaks releases of documents and welcomed their potential to damage candidate Clinton. Beginning in June 2016, this is redacted due to harm to ongoing matter, forecast to the senior campaign officials that WikiLeaks would release information damaging to candidate Clinton. WikiLeaks' first release came in July 2016. Around the same time, candidate Trump announced that he hoped Russia would recover the emails described as missing from a private server used by Clinton when she was Secretary of State. He later said that he was speaking sarcastically. I'm going to highlight this because this is on the news all the time. Okay. Around the same time, candidate Trump announced that he hoped Russia would recover emails described as missing from a private server used by Clinton when she was Secretary of State. He later said that he was speaking sarcastically. The rest of the sentence following that is redacted due to harm the ongoing matter. Continuing, WikiLeaks began releasing Podesta's stolen emails on October 7, 2016, less than an hour after a U.S. media outlet released video considered damaging to candidate Trump. Section 3 of this report details the office's investigation into the Russian hacking operation, as well as other efforts by Trump campaign supporters to obtain Clinton-related emails. Bold heading, Russia contacts with the campaign. The social media campaign and the GRU hacking operation coincided with a series of contacts between Trump campaign officials and individuals with ties to the Russian government. The office investigated whether those contacts reflected or resulted in the campaign conspiring or coordinating with Russia in its election interference activities. Although the investigation established that the Russian government perceived it would benefit from a Trump presidency and worked to secure that outcome, and that the campaign expected it would benefit electorally from the information stolen and released through Russian efforts, the investigation did not establish that members of the Trump campaign conspired or coordinated with the Russian government in its election interference activities. The Russian contacts consisted of business connections, offers of assistance to campaign, invitations for candidates Trump and Putin to meet in person, invitations for campaign officials and representatives of the Russian government to meet, and the policy positions seeking improved U.S.-Russian relations. Section 4 of this report details the contacts between Russia and the Trump campaign during the campaign and the transition periods, the most salient of which are summarized below in chronological order. And here's the order. 2015 bold. Some of the earliest contacts were made in connection with a Trump organization real estate project in Russia known as the Trump Tower Moscow. Candidate Trump signed a letter of intent for Trump Tower Moscow by November 2015, and in January 2016, Trump Organization executive Michael Cohen emailed and spoke about the project with the Office of Russian Government Press Secretary Dmitry Peskov. The Trump Organization pursued the project through at least June 2016, including by considering travel to Russia by Cohen and candidate Trump. Spring 2016. Campaign foreign policy advisor George Papadopoulos made early contact with Joseph Mifsud, a London-based professor who had connections to Russia, and traveled to Moscow in April 2016. Immediately upon his return from London from that trip, Misfit told Papadopoulos that the Russian government had, quote, dirt on Hillary Clinton in the form of thousands of emails. I'm going to go ahead and bold and highlight this real quick. Immediately upon his return from that trip, Misfit told Papadopoulos that the Russian government had dirt on Hillary Clinton in the form of thousands of emails. Thousands of emails. All right. 1 week later, in the first week of May 2016, Papadopoulos suggested to a representative of a foreign government that the Trump campaign had received indications from the Russian government that it could assist the campaign through an anonymous release of information damaging to Clinton. Throughout that period of time and for several months thereafter, Papadopoulos worked with Mifsud and 2 Russian nationals to arrange a meeting between campaign and the Russian government. No meeting took place. Summer of 2016. Russia outreach to the Trump campaign continued in the summer of 2016 as candidate Trump was becoming the presumptive Republican nominee for president. On June 9, 2016, for example, a Russian lawyer met with senior Trump campaign officials, Donald Trump Jr., Jared Kushner, and campaign chairman Paul Manafort to deliver what the email proposing the meeting had described as, quote, official documents and information that would incriminate Hillary, close quote. The materials were offered to Trump Jr. as, quote, part of Russia and its government support for Mr. Trump, close quote. The written communication setting up the meeting showed that the campaign anticipated receiving information from Russia that could assist candidate Trump's electoral prospect, but the Russian lawyer presentation did not provide such information. Days after June 9 meeting, on June 14, 2016, a cybersecurity firm and the DNC announced that Russian government hackers had infiltrated the DNC and obtained access to opposition research on candidate Trump, among others documents. In July 2016, campaign foreign policy advisor Carter Page traveled in his personal capacity to Moscow and gave the keynote address at the New Economic School. Page had lived and worked in Russia between 2003 and 2007. After returning to the United States, Page became acquainted with at least 2 Russian intelligence officers, one of whom was later charged in 2015 with conspiracy to act as an unregistered agent of Russia. Page's July 2016 trip to Moscow and his advocacy for pro-Russian foreign policy drew media attention. The campaign then distanced itself from Page and, by late September 2016, removed him from the campaign. July 2016 was also the month WikiLeaks first released emails stolen from the GRU from the DNC, stolen by the GRU from the DNC. On July 22nd, 2016, WikiLeaks posted thousands of internal DNC documents revealing information about the Clinton campaign. Within days, there was public reporting that U.S. intelligence agencies had, quote, high confidence that the Russian government was behind the theft of the emails and the documents from the DNC. And within weeks of the release, a foreign government informed the FBI about its May 2016 interaction with Papadopoulos and his statement that the Russian government could assist the Trump campaign. On July 31st, 2016, based on the foreign government's reporting, the FBI opened an investigation into potential coordination between the Russian government and individuals associated with the Trump campaign. Okay, we've seen this a lot coming up in the news of late, how the investigation started, so we're going to go ahead and highlight this. Within a week of the release, a foreign government informed the FBI about its May 2016 interaction with Papadopoulos and his statement that the Russian government could assist the Trump campaign. On July 31st, 2016, based on the foreign government's reporting, the FBI opened an investigation into potential coordination between the Russian government and individuals associated with the Trump campaign. Okay, so that's how this investigation started. You're going to hear a lot of news about how it got started. In fact, there might be investigations about the investigation. So we're going to continue reading. Separately, on August 2nd, 2016, Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort met in New York City with his longtime business associate Konstantin Kilimnik, who the FBI assesses to have ties to Russian intelligence. Okay, Kilimnik requested the meeting to deliver in person a peace plan for Ukraine that Manafort acknowledged to the Special Counsel's office was a backdoor way for Russia to control part of eastern Ukraine. Both men believed the plan would require candidate Trump's assent to secede were he to be elected president. They also discussed the status of the campaign and the Manafort's strategy for winning Democratic votes in Midwestern states. Months before that meeting, Manafort had caused internal polling data to be shared with Kilimnik, and the sharing continued for some period after that time. So months before this meeting, Manafort caused internal polling data to be shared with Kilimnik a foreign official, and the sharing continued for some period after their August meeting. So I'm going to do a little bit commentary right there. So does this make sense then why Manafort actually is in jail? Because he did some of this stuff? Even though the report actually details and says for a fact that there was no coordination or collusion? That's a little bit confusing, okay? Let's continue. Fall 2016. On October 7, 2016, the media released video of candidate Trump speaking in graphic terms about women years earlier, which was considered damaging to his presidency. Less than an hour later, WikiLeaks made its second release. Thousands of John Podesta's email that had been stolen by the GRU in late March 2016. The FBI and other government institutions were at the time continuing their investigation of suspected Russian government efforts to interfere in the presidential elections. That same day, October 7th, the Department of Homeland Security and the Office of Director of National Intelligence issued a joint public statement that the Russian government had directed recent compromises of emails from U.S. persons and institutions, including the U.S. political organizations, close quote. Those staffs and the disclosures of the hacked materials through the online platforms such as WikiLeaks, the statement continued, quote, are intended to interfere with the U.S. election process, close quote. Closed 2016 election. Immediately after the November 8 election, Russian government officials and prominent Russian businessmen began trying to make inroads into the new administration. The most senior level of the Russian government encouraged these efforts. The Russian embassy made contact hours after the election to congratulate President-elect and to arrange a call with President Putin. Several Russian businessmen picked up the efforts from there. Kirill Dmitriev, the chief executive officer of Russia's Sovereign Wealth Fund, was among the Russians who tried to make contact with the incoming administration. In early December, a business associate steered Dmitriev to Eric Prince, a supporter of the Trump campaign and an associate of senior Trump advisor Steve Bannon. Dmitriev and Prince later met face-to-face in January 2017 in the Seychelles and discussed U.S.-Russia relations. During the same period, another business associate introduced Dmitriev to a friend of Jared Kushner who had not served on the campaign or the transition team. Dmitriev and Kushner's friend collaborated on a short written reconciliation plan for the U.S. and Russia, which Dmitriev implied had been cleared to Putin. The friend gave that proposal to Kushner before the inauguration, and Kushner later gave copies to Bannon and incoming Secretary of State Rex Tillerson. Pause. Continuing. On December 29, 2016, then President Obama imposed sanctions on Russia for having interfered in the election. Incoming National Security Advisor Michael Flynn called Russia Ambassador Sergei Kislyak and asked Russia not to escalate the situation in response to the sanctions. The following day, Putin announced that Russia would not take retaliatory measures in response to the sanctions at that time. Okay, so this may account for why Flynn is going to prison, because he was an incoming national security advisor and he called Ambassador Sergei Kislyak and asked Russia not to escalate the situation in response to the sanction. Was he within his right to do that as an incoming national security advisor, even though it was not officially a transitionary period? So that may indicate why he's going to jail. Okay, the following day, Putin then announced that Russia would not take retaliatory measures in response to the sanctions at that time. Hours later, President-elect Trump tweeted, "Great move," on the delay by Putin, close quote. The next day, on December 31st, 2016, Kislyak called Flynn and told him the request had been received at the highest levels and Russia had chosen not to retaliate as a result of Flynn's request. This is very critical because this might explain why Flint, because they said he said something and he lied, and that's why he's going to jail. Okay, he hasn't been sentenced yet, I don't think, but this is a brand new news. If you're following this developments, it hasn't been sentenced, but this is a key part of why we think he's going to jail. End of commentary. On July 6, 2017, members of the Intelligence Committee briefed President-elect Trump on a joint assessment drafted and coordinated among the Central Intelligence Agency, FBI, and the National Security Agency that concluded with high confidence that Russia had intervened in the election through a variety of means to assist Trump's candidacy and harm Clinton's. A declassified version of the assessment was publicly released that same day. Between mid-January 2017 and early February 2017, 3 congressional committees, the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, HPSCI, the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, SSCI, and the Senate Judicial Committee, SJC, announced that they would conduct inquiries or had already begun conducting inquiries into Russia interference in the election. Then FBI Director James Comey later confirmed to Congress the existence of the FBI's investigation into Russian interference, and that had begun before the election. On March 20, 2017, in open session testimony before the HPSCI, Comey stated, "I have been authorized by the Department of Justice to confirm that the FBI, as part of our counterintelligence mission, is investigating the Russia's government's efforts to interfere in 2016 presidential election, and that includes investigating the nature of any links between individuals associated with the Trump campaign and the Russian government, and whether there was coordination between the campaign and the Russian efforts. And with any kind of intelligence investigation, this will also include an assessment of whether any crimes were committed." Gotta understand. So the FBI was running a counterintelligence investigation and also looking into if there was any crimes. In the commentary, the investigation continued under then Director Comey for the next 7 weeks until May 9th, 2017, when President Trump fired Comey as FBI Director, an action which is analyzed in Volume 2 of the report. On May 17, 2017, Acting Attorney General Rod Rosenstein appointed special counsel and authorized him to conduct the investigation that Comey had confirmed in his congressional testimony, as well as matters arising directly from the investigation and any other matters which within the scope of 28 CFR subsection 600.4 alpha, which generally covers efforts to interfere with or obstruct the investigation. So the appointment by then acting Attorney General Rosenstein appointed a special counsel that authorized him to conduct investigation that Comey had confirmed in his congressional testimony, as well as matters arising from the investigation and any other matters within the scope of 28 CFR section 600.4a, which generally covered efforts to interfere or obstruct the investigation. So this is where this Attorney General, this is a commentary, this is where the Attorney General's appointment then was made public after Comey publicly disclosed the counterintelligence investigation. Then a special counsel was then appointed. And if you notice, it was appointed to see if there was matters within the scope of the 28 CFR section 600.4a, which also includes to see if there was interference or obstruction. So this is where it becomes a little tricky, okay? Why was the special counsel appointed, and what was he appointed to do? And even after he was appointed, did the report conclusively, or did it not conclusively say if there was interference or if there was obstruction? You be the judge. Go ahead and comment below. If you're looking at this YouTube or you're listening to the audiobook, just go ahead and comment once you get a chance, okay? End of commentary. President Trump reacted negatively to the special counsel's appointment. He told advisors that it was the end of his presidency, sought to have Attorney General Jeff Sessions unrecuse himself from the Russia investigation and to have the special counsel removed, and engaged in efforts to curtail the special counsel's investigation and prevent the disclosure of evidence to it, including through public and private contacts with potential witnesses. Those and related actions are described and analyzed in Volume 2 of the report. Heading: the special counsel's charging decisions. In reaching the charging decisions described in Volume 1 of the report, the office determined whether the conduct it found amounted to a violation of federal criminal law chargeable under the principle of federal prosecution. See Justice Manual Section 9 to 27.0008S 2018. The standard set forth in the Justice Manual is whether the conduct constitutes a crime. If so, whether admissible evidence will probably be sufficient to obtain and sustain a conviction, and whether the prosecution would serve a substantial federal interest that could not be adequately served by prosecution elsewhere or through non-criminal alternatives. See Justice Manual Section 9 through 27.220. Section 5 of the report provides detailed explanation of the office's charging decisions, which contain three main components. First, the office determined that Russia's two principal interference operations in the 2016 U.S. presidential election, though the social media campaign and the hacking and dumping of operations, violated U.S. criminal law. The office determined, I'm going to say this again, I'm going to bold it. The office determined that Russia's two principal interference operations in the 2016 U.S. presidential election, the social media campaign, and the hacking and dumping operations violated U.S. criminal law. Most of the individuals and entities involved in the social media campaign have been charged with participating in a conspiracy to defraud the United States by undermining through deceptive acts the work of federal agencies charged with regulating foreign influence in U.S. elections, as well as related counts of identity theft. See United States versus Internet Research Agency et al., number 18-CR-32 DDC. Separately, Russian intelligence officers who carried out the hacking into the Democratic Party computers and the personal email accounts of individuals affiliated with the Clinton campaign conspired to violate, among other federal laws, the Federal Computer Intrusion Statute, and they have been charged. See United States versus Netixco et al., number 18-CR-215 DDC. The rest of this is actually redacted. It says harm to ongoing matter and personal privacy. Second, while the investigation identified numerous links between individuals with ties to the Russian government and individuals associated with the Trump campaign, the evidence was not sufficient to support criminal charges. Among those things, the evidence was not sufficient to charge any campaign official as an unregistered agent of the Russian government or other Russian principal. And our evidence about the June 9, 2016 meeting and the WikiLeaks releases of hacked material was not sufficient to charge a criminal campaign finance violation. Further, the evidence was not sufficient to charge that any member of the Trump campaign conspired with representatives of the Russian government to interfere in the 2016 election. So when you hear President Trump and some Republicans, this is a commentary saying no collusion, no interference, and it's a clean bill, This is probably where they get that information from, okay? Again, I'm going to read that again so we're more clear. Further, the evidence was not sufficient to charge that any member of the Trump campaign conspired with representatives of the Russian government to interfere in the 2016 election. But let me ask you guys this. Just listen closely. If this was Obama, what do you think would have happened? If this happened under Obama, what would have happened? In fact, last week, the special advisor to then President Obama, Valerie Jarrett, made a statement, and I quote, he said, if this was Obama, Obama would have been locked up in a nanosecond. In a nanosecond, if this was Obama. So what do you guys think? Go ahead and comment below on the YouTube video if you think Obama would have been locked up if this involved him and his folks. What do you think? Is this a double standard? I don't know. Comment below and let me know what you guys think. Okay, end the commentary. Let me go ahead and continue. Third, the investigation established that several individuals affiliated with the Trump campaign lied to the office and to Congress about the interactions with the Russian-affiliated individuals in related matters. Those lies materially impaired the investigation of the Russian election interference. The office charged some of those lies as violations of federal false statement statutes. Former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn pleaded guilty to lying about his interactions with Russian Ambassador Kislyak during the transition period. George Papadopoulos, a foreign policy advisor during the campaign period, pleaded guilty to lying to investigators about inter alia, the nature and timing of his interaction with Joseph Mitchell, the professor who told Papadopoulos that the Russian had dirt on candidate Clinton in the form of thousands of emails. Former Trump Organization attorney Michael Cohen pleaded guilty to making false statements to Congress about the Trump Moscow project. The rest of that statement is redacted. And in February 2019, the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia found that Manafort lied to the office and the grand jury concerning his interaction and communication with Konstantin Kilimnik about Trump campaign polling data and a peace plan for Ukraine. The office investigated several other events that had been publicly reported to include potential Russian-related contacts, okay? For example, the investigation established that interaction between Russia Ambassador Kislyak and the Trump campaign officials, both at the candidate's April 2016 foreign policy speech in Washington, D.C., and during the week of the Republican National Convention, were brief, public, and non-substantive. And the investigation did not establish that one campaign official's effort to dilute a portion of the Republican Party's platform on providing assistance to Ukraine were undertaken at the behest of candidate Trump or Russia. The investigation also did not establish that a meeting between Kislyak and Sessions in September 2016 at Sessions' Senate office included any more than a passing mention of the presidential campaign. The investigation did not always yield admissible information or testimony, or a complete picture of the activities undertaken by subject of the investigation. Some investigation invoked the Fifth Amendment right against compelled self-incrimination and were not, in the office's judgment, appropriate candidates for grants of immunity. The office limited its pursuit of other witnesses and information, such as information known to attorneys or individuals claiming to be members of the media in light of the internal Department of Justice policies. See example, Justice Manual, subsection 9-13.400, 13.410. Some of the information obtained via court process, moreover, was presumptively covered by legal privilege and was screened from investigators by filter or team. Even when individuals testified or agreed to be interviewed, they sometimes provided information that was false or incomplete, leading to some of the false statement charges described above. And the office faced practical limits on its ability to assess relevant evidence as well. Numerous witnesses and subjects lived abroad, and the documents were held outside the United States. Further, the office learned that some of the individuals were interviewed or whose conducts were investigated included some associated with the Trump campaign, deleted relevant communication or communicated during the relevant period using applications that featured encryption or that do not provide for long-term retention of data or communication records. In such cases, the office was not able to corroborate witness statements through comparison to contemporaneous communication or fully question witnesses about statements that appeared inconsistent with other known facts. Accordingly, while this report embodies factual and legal determinations that the office believes to be accurate and complete to the greatest extent possible, given these identified gaps, the office cannot rule out the possibility that the unavailable information would shed additional light on or cast in a new light the events described in the report. So in other words, there might be information out there that nobody has. Again, this is a commentary. There might be information out there that they did not have available to them, and consequently, they don't know for a fact if that information could shed new light or cast a new light on the events, okay? So that's very important. So there might be stuff out there that we don't know about. Okay, end of commentary. New section, the special counsel's investigation. On May 17, 2017, Deputy Attorney General Rod J. Rosenstein, then serving as acting Attorney General for the Russia investigation following the recusal of former Attorney General Jeff Sessions on March 2, 2016, appointed the special counsel, quote, to investigate Russian interference with the 2016 presidential elections and related matters, close quote. I'm going to highlight that. On March 2nd, 2016, appointed special counsel to investigate Russian interference with the 2016 presidential elections and related matters. Office of Deputy Attorney General Order Number 3915.2017. Appointment of special counsel to investigate Russian interference with the 2016 presidential election and related matters, May 17, 2017. Appointment orders. Relying on, quote, the authority vested, close quote, in the acting Attorney General, including 28 U.S.C. subsection 509, 510, and 515, the acting Attorney General ordered the appointment of a special counsel, quote, in order to discharge the acting Attorney General's responsibility to provide supervision and management of the Department of Justice and to ensure a full and thorough investigation of the Russian government's effort to interfere in the 2016 presidential election, close quote. Appointment order introduction. Quote, the special counsel, the order stated, quote, is authorized to conduct the investigation confirmed by then FBI Director James B. Comey in testimony before the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence on March 20, 2017, including 1, any links and or coordination between the Russian government and individuals associated with the campaign of President Donald Trump, and 2, any matters that arose or may arise directly from the investigation, and 3, any other matters within the scope of 28 CFR section 600.4a. Appointment orders B. Section 600.4 affords the special counsel the authority to investigate and prosecute federal crimes committed in the course of and with intent to interfere with the special counsel's investigations, such as perjury, obstruction of justice, destruction of evidence, and intimidation of witnesses. 28 CFR section 600.4a. The authority to investigate any matters that arose directly from the investigation Appointment orders A Bravo 2 cover similar crimes that may have occurred during the course of the FBI's confirmed investigation before special counsel's appointment. If the special counsel believes it is necessary and appropriate, the order further provided, quote, the special counsel is authorized to prosecute federal crimes arising from the investigation of these matters. And finally, the acting attorney general made applicable section 600.4 through 600.10 of Title 28 of the Code of Federal Regulations. All right. So basically, to sum all this up, it says it could do some investigation and basically prosecute folks that were lying or covering stuff up. Okay. And that's the additional. That's how come some people are going to jail for lying. That's in the commentary. Break. We'll return from the break. What we're going to do right now, we're going to stop and we're going to continue reading this at a later time. Okay? So yeah, just be on the lookout and go ahead and comment. If you haven't already commented on some of the stuff that we talked about, here's your chance to go ahead and do these comments, okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to continue reading this and we're going to come back and the next time you see this, you're going to have a full accounting of what we've already done, okay?